What's good? Here's Russell King here. Today we're going to be discussing the recent episode of Monday Night Raw. It starts off with Jey Uso's cutting a promo. He's about to talk about his upcoming match at Backlash, but Damian Priest ends up interrupting him, cutting him off. Damian and Jey Uso is in the ring. Damian starts talking to Damian. It starts off with Damian giving Jey Uso his props. It looks like Damian is not finna. It looks like Damian was kind of like acting kind of like a babyface here. He's giving him his props, congratulating Jey Uso. He starts talking about, something that happened in the past. He brings up an old match of theirs, says how Jey Uso ends up destroying him, how Jey Uso won the match in clean fashion. And he ends up saying that how after the match, he went up to him in the locker room and he said he earned his respect that day. And he said that was one of the reasons why he wanted him in the Judgment Day. Talked about how later on they went out to eat, how he doesn't remember much from that night. Then he ends up saying that Jey Uso told him that night that we next. We're next. We're the next upcoming superstars. And ends up saying that Jey Uso was right. But then after that, he ends up saying that, well, he was half right because I was next. Because he's the one holding singles gold, and Jey Uso hasn't won a singles title yet. Jey Uso responds because Damian Priest was about to leave the ring. But Jey Uso ends up responding, telling him to come back in the ring. Jey Uso ends up responding, saying that you think I'm just another tag team guy. You just think I'm just another Uso. Then he ends up saying that that's funny coming from the leader of the Judgment Day, and ends up saying the only reason you're the leader of the Judgment Day is because Rhea Ripley got injured. Then he ends up saying that you know what that makes you to me, right? Dominic Mysterio's bitch. That was great. Really loved that from Jey. Jey also kept talking about how, eventually he's going to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. JD McDonough tries to attack Jey Uso. Jey Uso ends up seeing it. And Jey Uso ends up super kicking Damian Priest. Runs out the ring. And that's the end of that segment there. Really good segment, building up the tension between them, because it's not much of a rivalry for the most part. This is just a more of a filler thing until, the draft comes up. But really, I love this segment. Afterwards, they end up announcing King and Queen of the Ring on May 25th. So that is returning. Can't wait. I just hope that they do it a little bit differently because from what I have seen, typically with the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments, whoever wins, they make it their whole entire gimmick that they're the King and Queen of the Ring. I hope they don't do that. Hope they still keep their character, but they're just the King and Queen of the Ring. That's it. Next, got the tag team match for the World Tag Team Championships. Awesome Truth versus DIY. This match was pretty solid. It was a decent match. Not going to go too much into it. I'm going to go over some sequences. We had a sequence where Miz ends up going for a springboard, but Tommaso Ciampa does a running knee mid-air, catching the Miz. Later in the match, Miz ends up doing a hot tag towards Truth. Truth does his typical, Cena comeback, goes for the 5-knuckle shuffle, but Johnny Gargano ends up super kicking Truth. Then Tommaso Ciampa takes advantage of that, ends up hitting it with a pedigree. I love that they're still playing up to the fact that Tommaso Ciampa is supposed to be like Triple H and Johnny Gargano is supposed to be Shawn Michaels. I love that they're still playing up to that. Truth ends up kicking out of the pedigree. Then Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa ends up doing their finisher. Johnny Gargano goes for the pin, but The Miz ends up rolling Johnny Gargano out of the ring. Tommaso Ciampa tries to attack Miz from the outside, but he ends up tossing him over the barricade. Then it's The Miz and Johnny Gargano, if I'm not mistaken, fighting, going back and forth, back and forth. Miz get the upper hand. It looked like Miz was going to go for the skull-crushing finale, but he ends up getting Truth to help him, and they ended up doing the Truth-crushing finale. Picks out the victory. After the match, it's Truth, Miz, and Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, all in the ring. They're congratulating each other, but it's just Johnny Gargano shaking hands with Truth and Miz, and Tommaso Ciampa didn't shake their hand. He didn't shake their hand. They offer, good sportsmanship. Tommaso just rolled out the ring and sat on the ring apron, and they cut it off from there. So it looks like they are teasing a heel turn from Tommaso Ciampa. Looks like Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano will break up, and it looks like Tommaso Ciampa may go into a singles run, but we may see. Next, we got a short segment with Damian Priest. He's talking to JD McDonough. He was mad because Damian Priest said that he didn't need JD's help. He didn't ask for JD help. He didn't ask him for his help last week, and he didn't ask this week. And he's blaming JD for why he got super kicked in the face. Then Dominic Mysterio comes in. He's in a sling. He's injured, and for their upcoming match, which was supposed to be Andrade Ricochet versus JD and Dominic, he ended up asking Santos Escobar to replace him. Damian Priest, of course, is not happy with that. He's frustrated, but he just says, you know what, we have to deal with it anyway. Then he ends up telling JD Madonna and Dominic to handle their Judgment Day business because he's going to handle his, and he told them to stay out of his way. Do not interfere with his business with Jey Uso. In this segment, Damian Priest was very, very angry, very frustrated, yelling at them, and they keep showing that since becoming world champion, he clearly has a hot head. He's clearly letting the ego get to him. And I feel like of course, this is building up the breakup of Judgment Day and building up. And I think this is how Damian is probably going to lose his title, because this is a way to protect Damian to where he lose the title, but he don't lose it in a way where it weakens him. So I think they're going to build this up. Don't know if they're going to do it at Backlash, though. They may do it at the next pay-per-view, but they're clearly teasing a breakup in Judgment Day. Next, we got Imperium. They cut a short promo. Gunther talks about how at the beginning he says, I'm not going to mock Sami Zayn. I'm not going to talk trash about Sami Zayn. And, he said, but he ends up congratulating Sami Zayn. He talked about how he elevated the championship, how he's the greatest intercontinental champion of all time. And he ends up talking about how the burden, the performance he had to deliver in the ring, the expectations that he had to constantly put on while having the championship, how he was a constant target. He ends up thanking Sami Zayn. He ends up saying, thank you for not making me a target anymore and lifting the responsibility off of me. And he ends up saying that he's going to enter the King of the Ring and become a champion either for the Intercontinental title or whatever championship he chooses. New Day ends up interrupting. They get in the ring. Xavier Woods talk about how he was the last King of the Ring winner and how he's going to retain his throne and become two-time King of the Ring winner. And then they did this weird sequence where he kept on saying it over and over. Kofi Kingston kept on saying, say it again, say it again. He kept on saying two-time King of the Ring. Gunther ends up cutting him off, ends up saying, let's be realistic. I'm going to win, change the image of the King of the Ring, and become champion. Xavier ends up responding, ends up saying that, isn't that what you used to be? Kofi Kingston hypes it up, he ends up repeating a chant. The crowd ends up saying, where your gold at, Gunther, where your gold is at. They kept on repeating that over and over and over again. Gunther just had enough. He ends up saying he wants Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser to fight them. New Day at first didn't want to fight them because they said they already fought them so many times, but they ended up accepting the match. Then we end up having Imperium versus New Day. This was a solid match, nothing too special here. New Day ends up picking the victory with Giovanni Vinci taking the pin. Now, they was doing this very long sequence where Kaiser was basically showing way too much appreciation, way too much love towards Giovanni. Like, he kept on hugging him. He was kissing him on the forehead. I was like, he was showing him way too much love because Ludwig Kaiser has never shown Giovanni that much love and attention, and it was taking way too long. They get to the outside. Kaiser ends up turning on Giovanni Vinci, attacking him, throws him towards the ring apron, throws him towards the ring post. Then he got him towards the steel steps. Has his body laying over the steel steps, kind of similar to what he did with Kofi Kingston. And security comes out, try to break it up, try to stop it. Gets to the point where, they're walking him out towards the thing. Now, it's taken a very long time to walk him out towards, the entrance. And I already knew what they was going to do. They was going to do the same thing he did to Kofi Kingston, where he plays it off like he's finna walk away. Then he ends up tricking the security and runs all the way around the ring. And he did just that. Tricks the security, runs all the way around the ring, runs towards the steel steps, and kicks his head in towards the steel steps, just like he did Kofi Kingston. Then he finally leaves, goes towards, the backstage area. And Gunther was happy. And Kaiser ends up talking to Gunther, ends up saying that I told you I would get it done. So it looks like Gunther approved of this, and that's what Gunther wanted it. So I'm interested to see what Giovanni does without Imperium, because I don't know how he survives without Imperium, because most people don't really care for Giovanni. The only thing I could think of is that Ilya Dragunov may get called up, and then you could pair them two together. Because I don't know how Giovanni works as a single star, or they're just gonna bring him down to NXT and make him work down there. So I don't know how you use Giovanni, but Giovanni looks like he's out of Imperium. Next, we got Drew McIntyre. He cuts a promo. He immediately gets in the ring. They start chanting CM Punk. He starts mocking CM Punk. He starts sitting down like CM Punk, how he typically does in the ring. Then we start off with Drew McIntyre ends up saying that, why do you guys chant his name every time I come out? The CM Punk chants gets louder. Then he ends up talking about his talks about the World Heavyweight Championship, talks about he ends up saying that, you ever love something that just doesn't love you back? He ends up saying that's my relationship with professional wrestling, says that. Then as he was talking, I think what chance was about to happen, but I'm not really sure because I think I heard what chance, but it was very like low, like you could barely hear it. In the middle of him talking, he ends up saying that, say what if you French kiss your cousin? They end up saying what, of course. He ends up calling him sick. Then he ends up responding, ends up saying that half of you guys don't understand complex relationships because the most complex relationship you ever had was with your right hand. Thought that was a good comeback. He ends up saying that he's not going to complain. He's not going to complain about why he doesn't have the championship. But then in the midst of him not complaining, he ends up complaining. Starts talking about how when he won the championship, CM Punk attacked him from behind. Talked about how Damian Priest was a coward, cashing his money in the bank. Basically, he said he wasn't going to complain, but then starts complaining. After that, Sheamus comes out. Comes in to the ring, and he ends up talking to Drew McIntyre, talking about how they've been friends for a long time. Then he ends up talking to Drew, ends up saying that all I see is a person who's not going to take responsibility for his own mistake. He ends up saying that for the past 4 years, all I heard was you talking about how you was robbed of your Mania moment, how you won the championship with no fans. And then he said at this WrestleMania 40, you finally did it. You finally had your moment, but then you blew it. And he says, as a friend, I'm here to tell you the harsh truth. And he ends up saying that you got your ass kicked by one-armed CM Punk. Drew McIntyre got mad. And Sheamus ends up saying that your obsession with CM Punk is going to ruin your career. Drew McIntyre starts bringing up Sheamus, starts to bring it up how before his injury he was putting on banger after banger after banger. Then he says, ever since you returned, though, it seems like you've been eating burger after burger after burger. That was a decent comeback. Sheamus ends up responding to that, ends up saying that I can lose the weight, but you can't lose stupid, which was a good comeback because Drew McIntyre has been dumb. This is all Drew McIntyre's fault. It's Drew McIntyre's fault why he's not World Heavyweight Champion. Then he ends up saying that, you can't lose stupid. And he ends up telling Drew McIntyre to stop blaming everyone else for his mistakes. Drew McIntyre, of course, not going to put the blame on himself. He talked about how it is. He starts talking about how people backstage is talking about Sheamus' weight. Sheamus says he doesn't care, but Drew McIntyre got in his face, says, I care because we are friends and I'm going to always have your back and I'm always going to watch your back. Then it ends up leading up to Sheamus versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Not going to really talk to him much into this match. This was a decent match, not too special. Sheamus ended up picking up the victory there. Then we got a backstage segment. Sami Zayn is getting interviewed by Kathy Kelly, I think. Talked about, the Chad Gable stuff. Sami Zayn ends up saying that he's not going to speak on the situation. He wants to hear Chad Gable's side of the story. Bronson Reed pulls up, ends up telling Sami that he has bigger issues than Chad Gable. Points at the title. Sami Zayn ends up saying, you want this championship? Anytime, any place, I'm ready. Bronson Reed walks off, but then he comes back, attacks Sami from behind, attacks him, and then that's the end of there. Security has to break them up, so it looks like they're going to... Now, I don't know what they're going to do here, because I'm assuming they're probably going to have a championship match next week, because I don't think they're going to have it at Backlash, I think. But they could. They might end up having a match at Backlash, but it looks like Bronson Reed is going to get a championship opportunity since he attacked Sami Zayn from behind. And I'm very interested in the match. Bronson Reed is not going to win the match, but I'm very excited for that because I love Bronson Reed. I think he has a lot of potential. Next, we got Chad Gable. He had a promo. He was with the Alpha Academy with Maxine, Otis, and Tozawa. Comes out, he ends up saying that what he did to Sami Zayn was justified. And his justification, I'm going to be honest, at first it was bad because the reasonings he was giving was terrible because he ends up saying that Sammy rubbed it in his face. He rubbed it in his face because after he was crying in the corner, he ends up going up to him and holding the title in his face, which is not true. He was helping you up. And then he ends up saying that he celebrated with his wife. I was like, okay, the reasonings you're giving are just bad. But then he ends up fixing it, and then this is where he really started to pull me in, and this is where I started to enjoy it because he ends up saying that should have been him. That should have been him celebrating with his wife, with his kids. And he said instead of doing that, he's been wasting his time training Sami Zayn and wasting his time training a bunch of losers. Man, Chad Gable went rogue in this promo, and I loved it. I really loved it. He ends up going to Tozawa. He ends up asking, he said, do you have a problem? Because he said, all you do is just do your little dance. After you're done doing your little dance, all you do is constantly do loss after loss after loss, which is very hypocritical, no offense, because all Chad Gable's been doing is losing and losing and losing, but he when it brings up the losses of, his colleagues. But he ends up talking to Maxine, talked about how Maxine is this pretty, gorgeous woman. But then he ends up saying she's gorgeous, but she's dumb as a box of rocks. Then he goes to Otis, says Otis is a proof. He said Otis has proven himself to be the biggest disappointment of them all. But he ends up going, Alpha Academy, of course, looks sad, look depressed because they're not liking the new Chad Gable. But Chad Gable ends up saying that don't be mad at me. This is the reason why you joined the academy. This is just honest, harsh feedback. This is just harsh, honest feedback. And that he said, from now on, we're going to focus on Gable. We're going to focus on me, and we're going to focus on getting my Intercontinental Championship. And he ends up asking him, are they willing to do whatever it takes to help him to win the championship no matter what? He wants them all to say no matter what. Maxine and Tozawa ends up saying it, but then Otis wasn't saying it. He ends up telling Otis that he needs him to say no matter what. Otis, with a sad look on his face, ends up saying no matter what. That was the end of the segment there. Really love this heel Chad Gable. I'm still a bit confused on it because I still don't see him. Now, I can see him winning it. I just don't see him winning it this soon. Now, I don't think every champion is going to have a long reign. Some of these reigns are going to be shorter. I think Sami Zayn is going to hold this for at least 2 pay-per-views, 2 to 3 pay-per-views, and then lose it. So that's why I'm saying I don't understand the reason. Because if they end up doing a match like very soon, like if they do a match at Backlash, I don't think Chad Gable's winning that. I think he would still lose. So that's why I say, if they're going to have him do this heel, they need to drag it on a bit. Kind of how they dragged on the Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre thing. Drag it on a bit. Make them skip a pay-per-view or two, revisit it, and then have Chad Gable win. But I did love this segment, though. After this, we got Santos Escobar, Jaden Madonna versus Ricochet and Andrade. Not going to go to that too much into this match. Very a nothing match. Andrade and Ricochet end up picking up the victory. Damian Priest comes in after the match, attacks Andrade and Ricochet. After he attacks them, Dominic Mysterio's on a ring apron. He walks to the Dominic, says something in Spanish. JD Madonna is curious to what he said. Damian Priest looks over, walks up to him and said that, you want to know what I said? He ends up saying that, I said that I don't need anybody. You guys need me. And this is proving and going along of Damian Priest constantly being a hothead. He's over abusing his power. He's getting a little too confident. And it looks like that is potentially could lead to him losing that championship because they may cost him that belt. Now, the thing is, if they do this, are they going to do it with Jey Uso, or they could do it with Finn Balor? Because me personally, what I would prefer is have Finn Balor and Damian Priest have a feud, and then Judgment Day helps Finn Balor beat Damian Priest. That's what I would do, but I don't know. Now, got the main event, the Battle Royal. It's a Battle Royal, nothing too crazy here, but we have some cool spots. Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae both got eliminated by Maxine Dupree. That was very interesting. We got to later in the match, the outside. Piper Niven ends up getting eliminated by Becky Lynch. But then Piper Niven, of course, got angry, ends up attacking Becky Lynch, pulls her from underneath the ring. So she went under the bottom rope so Becky Lynch didn't get eliminated. Puts her on the announce table, and she ends up doing a choke slam onto the announce table, if I'm not mistaken. No. She lays Becky Lynch on the announce table. She was about to do something on it, but Nia Jax ends up coming out, and she ends up doing a choke slam onto the announce table while Becky Lynch is on the table to Piper Niven. So Becky Lynch ends up taking Piper Niven's whole body onto the announce table. And she ends up doing a Samoan drop to Piper Niven on the announce table while Becky Lynch was still on the table. And then after commercial, they cut back to commercial. They end up showing that Nia Jax ends up doing a power bomb on the announce table to Becky Lynch afterwards. Then we get to the final three later in the match. The final three: Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler ends up getting eliminated. The final three is Becky Lynch, Nia Jax, and Liv Morgan. They're all duking it out. We got a sequence where Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan are teaming up to take out Nia Jax. They was about to do a double suplex, but Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch can't pick up Nia Jax. Nia Jax reverses it and ends up hitting them with a double suplex, ends up suplexing them both at the same time. Then after that, Nia Jax tries to go for a finisher. She tries to go for a double eradicator, but Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch ends up getting up, attacking her, pushing her towards the ring apron, and then Liv Morgan ends up doing a code breaker onto the ring apron. Then that code breaker goes into a Becky Lynch leg drop, eliminates Nia Jax. Then the final two, Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan. Good back and forth, good solid back and forth. Both opponents are on the ring apron. Liv Morgan ends up kicking Becky Lynch into the ring post. Liv Morgan tries to go for her finisher, the Oblivion, but ends up getting caught, reversing it, hits her head on a turnbuckle. Then Becky Lynch hits her with a manhandle slam on the ring apron, and Liv Morgan ends up getting eliminated. Becky Lynch is now your new World Heavyweight Women's Champion, and I love this. This was good. This was a solid battle royal. I love this decision. I thought Liv Morgan was going to take it, but I love that Becky Lynch won. The hate that Becky Lynch is getting is ridiculous. It really needs to stop. It's ridiculous, the amount of hate that Becky Lynch gets, the constant she's over pushed, all of this. It is ridiculous. Becky Lynch has not been pushed the way that fans want to project, fans think she has, especially in the past 2 years. The past 2 years, she has not been in the main event scene. Outside of this recent Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania, she hasn't really fought for a world title. Ever since she lost to Bianca Belair, she's been doing side quests. So this idea that Becky Lynch is being over pushed is ridiculous. It really makes no sense. I get it. I get people wanted Liv Morgan to win, but I'm not mad at it personally. It would have made sense for Liv Morgan to win, but to me personally, I think it's a good decision to have Becky Lynch win. Plus, Becky Lynch is just going to be a transitional champion until Rhea Ripley wins. And I kind of like the story of Liv Morgan losing, because I think the purpose of Liv Morgan's revenge tour should be about Rhea Ripley. It should be about beating Rhea Ripley and getting revenge. Yes, she got revenge by injuring her, but I think she still needs to defeat Rhea Ripley at the same time for, you know what I'm saying? Becky Lynch winning it, I don't think it's bad. I think it's good because it builds up prestige, because after Rhea Ripley, had to relinquish the title, the prestige of that title isn't the same because she didn't get the opportunity to pass the torch to someone else. So you're basically starting from the ground up. So you need to rebuild that prestige, and Becky Lynch can easily rebuild that prestige just off her name and her star power. I understand people want Liv Morgan to win, but the hate for Becky Lynch has to stop. It's ridiculous. It is wild because the over push stuff is ridiculous because it's very inconsistent and it's very kind of a bit biased, because there are plenty of stars we can say are over push now, but people don't complain about it. So it's kind of hypocritical. The Becky Lynch hate needs to stop, bro. She hasn't held a singles title outside of NXT, but majority of people don't consider NXT as a main card title. Let's be honest. So outside of NXT, she hasn't held a main women's title since 2022. So let's stop this narrative of her being overpushed. But this episode of Raw, this was a solid episode of Raw. I wouldn't say nothing too major happened outside, the main event, but this was a decent episode of Raw. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode of Raw. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, that's it.